So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's very nice to have you all here. My name is Dora. I'm one of the organizers of Kesher. You can also find here Sebastian. It's the two of us who started this project almost 4 years ago now. And I'm so happy to have so many familiar faces here. Thank you so much for joining, and also for those who are joining us for the first time. I want to give you all a very warm welcome. The aim of our project has been and still is to introduce Jewish communities from all over the world. Today's session is a bit special because normally we do this in online presentations, which is partly what we are going to do today. So every week we have 2 or 3 sessions in which we introduce the history, the heritage, the culture, and also the present day situation of a Jewish community in a Zoom session. But the last 2 years, and this year will be the 3rd time, we are also organizing a real life trip, and it will be to Spain. So this coming November. So today the presentation will have 2 parts. I see someone started sharing. That is not us. So today the presentation will have 2 parts. In the first around 45 minutes, we will host Moises Hassan, who is involved both as a speaker and as a group leader in the actual trip to Spain. So he will speak to us about the history, the heritage, and the present day situation of Jews in Spain. And in the second part of the presentation, we will have Alexis Court speaking, who is the team leader of the group going this November to Spain. And she's been the team leader in the past 2 trips as well. And she's going to share the specific details of the trip that is going to go to Spain this November. So you can stay for both presentations, learn a bit about Spain, and then if you feel like it, you can hear how this trip is going to look like, and you can also join on the actual real life trip. So I don't want to take further time because there's a lot to go through today. So I want to pass the word to Moises, who will give the first part of the presentation. He is a lecturer. He's been guiding tours in Spain and organizing tours for many, many years now. He's a historian. He's a very knowledgeable and also an active member of the Jewish community in Spain. So he's an absolute wonderful person to listen to in this topic. So Moises, the floor is all yours. If you have questions, please put them in the chat, and we will have a short time after his presentation for Q&A before we start the second part. So let's get
good afternoon to all of you who are on the other side of the ocean, or good evening for those that are at this side of the ocean in Europe. As Dora said, I am going to give a presentation about the Sephardic Jews, the Jews of Spain. I myself am Sephardic. I was born here in Spain. I'm the first generation of my family born in Spain, as my parents moved from Morocco in the 1950s, and they settled down in Spain, first in Madrid, and eventually in Sevilla, which is where I was born, and this is where I now live. And as Dora said, I've been involved into what I call informal Jewish education. I've been guiding in Spain, especially in Sevilla. I've been conducting Jewish focus tours, and I am also a lecturer at the university where I lecture on Holocaust studies and anti-Semitism. And I also lecture lately about Judaism in a university, in a private university owned by the Jesuits. They have a special course on international relationships and religion, and that I lecture on Judaism to the students who in Spain, unfortunately, know nothing about Judaism. So as I said, I'm very much involved into what I call informal Jewish education. And well, I'll give you an overview of what was once Spain for the Jews, and also what today is Spain for the Jews. So to begin with, I'm going to share my screen with. Okay, can you all see my presentation?
Yes, wonderful.
Okay, so there we go. Now sometimes okay. Here we are. So we need first to speak about when did the Jews arrive in Spain. And the truth is that we estimate and we believe that Jews came to well, not to Spain. There was no Spain by then. It was the Iberian Peninsula. Today, the Iberian Peninsula is composed by Spain and Portugal, but in those years there was no Spain, but Hispania. Hispania was the name given by the Romans to the Iberian Peninsula, and it was the most western territory of the Roman Empire. And we know that Jews arrived here by the end of the second century A of the Common Era, which it makes sense. If you remember, the destruction of the Second Temple happened in the year 70 of the Common Era, and then there was a big revolt led by Bar Kokhba in the year between 132 and 135. And after this revolt, the Romans wanted to end up Jewish life in the land of Israel, and they expelled the Jews from Israel. They changed the name of the land to Palestine, and even the name of the city of Jerusalem was changed to Aelia Capitolina, and which was a serious attempt to disconnect Jewish life from Israel and especially Jerusalem. So the big Gola, the diaspora started, and so it makes sense that Jews traveled all throughout the Mediterranean, north and south, and eventually they ended up arriving in the Iberian Peninsula. So the first evidence we have is a tombstone which was found in this part of Spain, in the city of Adra. It's a tombstone of a girl, Ania Salomonula, and this tombstone was dated to the beginning of the 3rd century. So we can tell that by the 3rd century, there was Jewish presence in the Iberian Peninsula. Then the Romans collapsed, and barbarian tribes coming from the north, from what today is Germany, entered into the Iberian Peninsula and controlled most of it. There were different groups: barbarians, the Vandals, or the Suevi, or the Alani, and finally the Visigoths. They managed to get control of mostly the entire Iberian Peninsula, and a monarchy was settled down, a monarchy that lasted approximately 300 years. So for 300 years, the Iberian Peninsula was controlled by Visigoths. Remember, barbarians coming from Germany, from Central Europe, until the Visigoths were replaced by the Muslims. Moors, coming from North Africa, entered into the Iberian Peninsula. This time they entered from the south. Oh, sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. Here we have some evidence of the archaeological pieces that I spoke about. This one on the upper right corner is the tombstone of Ania Salomonula, and as I said, it dates back. It is believed that it goes back to the beginning of the third century. And on the left side of the screen, there is another tombstone which is written in Latin, and this is this can be seen at the museum at the archaeological museum in Merida, and it's the tombstone of a person that was born in what today is Shechem. Shechem is Nablus, actually in the West Bank, the city of Shechem, which was Flavia Neapolis, that was the name. So it says that Justinus, and we can see the name on top, Justinus, originally from Flavia Neapolis. So Justinus, who was born in Shem. It doesn't say that he was Jewish. As you can see at the other tombstone, it mentions the word Jewish, Judea in Latin. And this one, it doesn't say so. So we don't know if this person, even though he was born in Flavia Neapolis, in Shem, he was Jewish or not. This tombstone, though, it's even from an earlier time. This was dated to the year approximately 160, 170 of the Common Era. But as I said, it doesn't mention the religion of this person, just that it was born in the land of Israel. Okay, so this could be the first evidence. And then another piece that is the museum in, actually in this case is in Toledo, is a sink. This is actually a sink with a triple inscription. It's not very well seen, but then there is a triple inscription in Greek and Latin. And this was dated to the. So these are the evidence that we do have from ancient times about Jewish presence in the Iberian Peninsula. But even more than archaeological evidence, we have some other type of information. For example, the canons of the Council of Elvira. Elvira was a city that doesn't exist today. It was near where today is the city of Granada, and the name was Iliberris. That was the Roman name, and there was a council, a synod, which was held at the beginning of the 4th century. At that time, remember that the Roman Empire is still pagan, so Christianity has spread out all throughout, but still the official religion of the empire is paganism. Okay, but there is a synod, there's a council that was held in the city of Elvira at the very beginning of the 4th century, and we can see some specific mentions to the Jews. We can see the Canon 16 says heretics, if they are unwilling to change over to the Catholic Church, are not to have Catholic girls given to them in marriage. So no intermarriage would be permitted here. Another article, Canon 49, mentions that land holders are warned not to allow the crops which they have received from God with an act of thanksgiving to be blessed by the Jews. So it's saying that any peasant cannot have his crops, his land blessed by a Jew, because this would be not valid. Probably this was like common practice. You have to think about peasants, and they just wanted the rain to fall down, so they would ask anyone that can give a blessing to the land to be fruitful. So they are warned not to have a Jew doing this. Another mention is in Canon 50, that says that if any of the clergy eats with Jews, he would be kicked out from the church. So he is excommunicated. Why? Because he's not supposed to socialize with the Jew. And even there is a last mention in Article Canon 78 that says that one of the faithful, when it says one of the faithful, it means a Christian who is married commits adultery with a Jewish or pagan woman, he shall be cut off communion. So again, if they commit adultery with a Jewish woman, then they shall be cut off communion. And after seeing all these mentions, the question that arises is how many Jews were here by then? And the answer is actually not easy, but I would say that there were enough Jews to be a concern, and this is what moved the Romans to make these regulations. So it's impossible for us to give even an estimation of a number, but the truth is that probably the number of Jews was big enough to be a concern, and that's why all these limitations were put over the Jews. So, and this is the beginning of the 4th century. Remember, still the Roman Empire was pagan. It started to become Christian with the next emperor, Constantine. This happened during this 4th century. And this is another important moment, which is when the Muslims entered in Spain, in the Iberian Peninsula, sorry. They came from North Africa. Okay, they started here. The distance in between both continents, it's only 8 miles. So it's you can see actually Europe from Africa or Africa from Europe. So the Moors, and we call them the Moors because in Roman times, this part of the world was called the province of Mauritania. So the inhabitants of Mauritania were the Maoris, and we refer to them as the Moors, and that's where the term Moor come from. So Moors coming from North Africa jumped into the Iberian Peninsula, and they went all the way up to the north. The north. This section though was never taken over by these Moors, these Berbers, and they crossed actually the Pyrenees and went into what today is France. Okay, so as you can see on at the bottom, this is expansion of the Umayyads. The Umayyads came into the Iberian Peninsula in the 8th century, and as you can see, they expanded towards east and towards west until they reached the end of Africa, and the next step was taking over Spain. And here we see 4 different moments. I just wanted, because Muslims were here in the Iberian Peninsula for almost 800 years. So remember, at the beginning, they started at the very bottom in what today is Gibraltar, and they went all the way up. And then they did that in only 7 years. It was a very short amount of time, and the Visigothic kingdom actually collapsed, and Muslims took over. But the little Christian kingdoms in the north started to organize themselves and pushed down. However, the pushing down goes much slower, goes much slower than the coming up. So by the year 866, so it means 150 years after Muslims entered in the Iberian Peninsula, the Christians have recovered only this northern part of the Iberian Peninsula. And then if we move on to the year 1100 to the 1100s, so 400 years after Muslims started, still the Muslims do control the whole center and south of the Iberian Peninsula. So 1/3 is back into Christian hands. Still though, the 2/3 of the Iberian Peninsula are still controlled by the Muslims. If we move 100 years further, situation is very similar. These are all the divisions of these Christian kingdoms. All the Christians were not unified. They were different entities that eventually became different kingdoms. And of course, these kingdoms fought against each other. So it was not, they were not homogeneous. And still though, by the year 1212, the whole south is still controlled by the Muslims. So that's why the color here, the green color, that means controlled by Islam. And we need to move to the 15th century, to the end of the 15th century, to see the last stronghold, which was the Kingdom of Granada, to surrender. So Granada only surrendered 800 years after the invasion of the Muslims in 711. The surrender of Granada took place in the year 1492. 1492, by the way, is the same year that the Jews were kicked out from Spain. It's also the same year that Columbus arrived into America. At the beginning, the Muslim invasion was actually good for the Jews. Why? I should mention that when the Romans were controlling here, Jews were tolerated by the Romans. Then, when the Visigoths came in the 5th century, Jews went through really bad moments, and by the 7th century, Jews living in the Iberian Peninsula under the Visigoths were put into slavery. They were turned into slavery. All their property was confiscated, and children under the age of 7, Jewish children under the age of 7, were removed from their families and placed to live with Christian families, which is a really serious attempt to end up with Jewish life in the Iberian Peninsula. So the end of the 7th century under the Visigoths, the situation for the Jews in the Iberian Peninsula is really bad. So it's not strange that when in 711, 20, 25 years after the Maoris, the Moors invaded Spain, the Jews actually were very, very happy. They kind of they welcomed them because their situation was not the best. Probably they thought that life couldn't get worse for them. Remember, they were slaves. And it's true that Muslims tolerated the Jews. I mean, there is this has been romanticized over the years, and it wasn't that good, but I must admit that it wasn't that bad. So Jews were actually the Jews living under Islam were considered dhimmi can be translated as second-class citizen. Okay, so they were not full citizens, but they were not longer slaves. They were considered second-class citizens, and as citizens, they had rights. Of course, they had many limitations in their daily life. For example, Jews, even though they were permitted to have places to worship, these places couldn't be never higher than a mosque, for example, or another limitation was that Jews.
Russ, can you see how I can't get to the.
It's okay?
Yes, you can keep going.
Okay. So I was saying that, for example, Jews were not permitted to have any authority over any Muslims. So it means that Jews were not permitted to achieve high positions within the administration. Or, for example, Jews were not permitted to ride horses, and the reason was very simple. The moment that someone rides a horse, he's higher than the person that's walking. Therefore, and that was considered a lack of respect. So among so as you can see, they had many limitations, and probably the most important limitation or restriction was that Jews had to pay special taxes for being dhimmis, for being second-class citizen or a protected minority, as the Muslims prefer to say. Jews were supposed to pay the jizya, which were special taxes for being a dhimmi. And why this category? Because Muslims considered actually both Jews and Christians, people of the book. So there is a common root, there's a common father, which is Abraham or Ibrahim, as the Muslims call him. And that's why Jews, unlike pagans, were considered people of the book, so second-class citizens. But these rules were at some point just over the paper, and it was possible for the rulers, for the sultans, for the caliph to give rights to his Jews according to their needs. And this is how, for example, Khosdai ibn Shaprut was a physician. He became a minister. He became a minister in the 10th century. He became a minister to Caliph Abdurrahman III. Technically, a minister is a person that has authority over some other people. Still, he was the physician of the Caliph, and Abdurrahman III, he decided that his physician was smart enough to become a minister. So he became a minister, and later he became a diplomat. Or this is the case also of, at the same time, the Muslims, the Arabs, actually encouraged and promoted science and art and literature and medicine and physics and mathematics and all these sciences. And Jews actually took part and were part of this movement. So this is the same time. You have to understand and remember that by the 10th century, the Christian world is going through what we call the Dark Ages, which is the opposite of what I'm talking now. The Dark Ages is that moment in history where the church wants to maintain control over the people, and the best way to maintain the people under control is by keeping them as ignorant as possible. Okay, so within the Christian world, most of the people didn't have any access to any type of education. Most of them, the large majority, wouldn't even know how to read. And in the land controlled by the Arabs, the situation was slightly different, and education was a plus. And as I said, some Jews were part of this, and we have some big examples as Shmuel ibn Navrela, or Abraham ibn Ezra, or Shlomo ibn Gabirol, or Ibn Gayyad or Al-Fassi or Yehuda Halevi, the famous poet, or Ibn Tibbon was from a family of translators. And when you see the dates, all the dates are between the 10th and the 11th century. So this is what we call, what is known as the Golden Age, the Golden Age of Spanish Judaism. Well, Judaism flourished in the Iberian Peninsula. Most of these scholars wrote in both Arabic and Hebrew. Arabic was and so they were very much into education. Unfortunately, this all ended with the arrival of the radical Muslims, the Almohads. And this is why I decided to put Rambam on a different slide. Actually, Rambam is not considered, cannot be considered part of the Golden Age. The Golden Age is that period in our history in the Iberian Peninsula that lasted approximately 200 years, between 929 and 1148. 1148 is the moment when the Almohads invaded. The Almohads were fanatical Muslims that came from the south, and the Muslim society radically changed. And it was, until that moment, a tolerant society, and it became very intolerant. And this is actually when Rambam, Moshe ben Maimon, was born in Cordoba. So he left the city of Cordoba. He left at the age of 13 and moved down to Morocco, then to the land of Israel, and eventually he settled down in Egypt, which Egypt is actually where he developed all his writing and his work. And that's why I did not include the Rambam together with the other scholars from the Golden Age, but he's more a product of the Golden Age. So probably he was possible because of what it had been happening here before. And today, actually, the Rambam is probably the most considered of the scholars born in the Iberian Peninsula. But again, he did not do any of his jobs here, but in Egypt, where he settled down. And he, as a great scholar, he wrote some philosophical works and medical and even astronomy. And a very famous, for example, is the Letter of Apostasy. They get it, Teiman, which is the letter to the Jews of Yemen. No, he wrote to the Yemenite Jews, and remember that while this is going on, the Christians in the north keep pushing down. So the goal of these Christians is to recover the territory that was taken away from them in the year 711. Okay, so I'm sorry. I just got some pictures of Jewish heritage spots in Spain today. You can see there's a mikveh in the city of Besalú. Besalú is in the northern part of Spain, in Girona, very close to the border with France. And this mikveh was found in the 1960s. It was about 50, 70 years ago when they found a mikveh in Besalú, which can be visited. And this is one of the very few mikvehs that have been found in Spain. Another city with large Jewish heritage is the city of Toledo. And here we have the synagogue of El Tránsito, which today houses the Sephardic Museum of Spain. It was a synagogue built by Shmuel Halevi. We can see his face on the left part of the screen. We don't know if he looked like this. Okay, this is just a depiction of Shmuel Halevi, and he He was a very prominent and important man, and he got permission from the king to build his own synagogue. This was the 14th century. In the 14th century, remember, most of the Iberian Peninsula is back into Christian hands. Still, the Kingdom of Granada remains under the control of the Muslims. So Shmuel was living in Toledo, and he got permission from the King of Castilla to build his own synagogue, which still can be visited today. And after being a synagogue, of course, after the Jews were kicked out of Spain in 1492, this building was transformed into a church and dedicated to the Lady of the Transit of Virgin Mary. That's why it has this very funny name of Synagogue of El Tránsito. So synagogue is a Jewish concept, El Tránsito is a Christian concept. But since it was dedicated to Mary, the transition of Mary from earth to heaven, that's why it's known today as the Synagogue of El Tránsito. Okay, and other places that we can visit in Toledo are the synagogue of, for example, the synagogue of Santa Maria la Blanca. Again, the same concept, the synagogue of Saint Mary the White. Of course, when it was synagogue, this was not the name. It was known as the Ibn Shoshan synagogue. Probably Ibn Shoshan was the person that paid for the construction of the synagogue. But then, after the expulsion of the Jews, that synagogue was turned into a church. And that's why it has today the name is known as the Synagogue of Santa Maria la Blanca. Some other places that we can visit while in Spain, that will be part of our tour in November, are Cordoba. Cordoba, remember the birth place of the Rambam. And in Cordoba, a little synagogue has been preserved over the years. Definitely there were more than one, probably there were several synagogues in Cordoba, but only one has been preserved. And actually, after the expulsion, this little synagogue became a little church, and also the headquarters of the Guild of the Shoemakers, and a warehouse, and it had many different uses until the end of the 19th century, when the Hebrew inscriptions were found into the walls, and it was restored, and today it can be visited as a synagogue. As you can see, what it was restored and recovered from the walls, it's a very Moorish style. This building decoration dates back to the 14th century. According to the plaque, there's an inscription in the wall here, which is this plaque, and the year that is provided is 5015, which is 1315 in the Christian calendar. So again, a synagogue from the 14th century, which can be still visited in the city of Cordoba. In Sevilla, my hometown, we also have a church, in this case, not a synagogue of Santa Maria Blanca, but a church. The truth is that before being a synagogue, before being a church, this building was a synagogue. Okay, that's why I have it in my presentation. And what you can see as the church as can be seen today, but a few years ago, this painting up here, which is a canvas, was removed, and remains of the synagogue were found behind the canvas. And I have to tell you something, that in the last 3 months, they have been working in this building. This going through a big restoration process, and the Haron HaKodesh has been found behind the altarpiece. I have, the truth is that I have some pictures, but I cannot show them to you until the archaeologists, they validate all what is being done here. But probably for those of you that decide to join us in November, we'll be able to walk into this church, which is an active church today, and we'll be able to see the remains of the synagogue. It has become one of the highlights of Spain nowadays. And as I'm saying, still the archaeologists are working and trying to date everything, and they are documenting what has been found in this very interesting building. Some parts of the area. So as I was saying before, this golden, which is the altarpiece, this is what it has been removed, and behind they have found some structures that are part of the synagogue. We have also the city of Lucena. Lucena lies also in the southern part of Spain, and in olden times the name was Eliosan. It was considered a Jewish city by the 12th century. All the inhabitants of Lucena happened to be Jewish, and it was Muslim. It was owned by the Muslims by that time. Remember that Muslims were coming down. Sorry, the Christians were coming down and taking cities away from the Muslims, but Lucena remained into Muslim hands until the 12th century. And a very interesting discovery took place in the year 2009, as far as I remember, when a cemetery was found, a Jewish cemetery was found. Over 340 different corpses, individuals were found, and by accident. So they were making actually the circumambulation ring of the village, and the cemetery came out, and the whole area was respected. So the human remains that were found were reburied in that place, which is the picture that you can see on the left side of the screen. And this is I think it's the only tombstone with an inscription that was found, which is it's called the tombstone of Rabbi Amicos. Okay, so this was found in the cemetery. Also, during our trip, we will visit in Barcelona. We have quite interesting. These are some of the streets that we can see in Barcelona. This is a place that was excavated a few years ago, and some people believe that was a synagogue. The truth is that we don't have a real evidence that this place was a synagogue. It could be. It's actually inside the Cal, inside the Jewish quarter of Barcelona, but we cannot affirm that it was a synagogue 100%. But in one of the buildings of the city, we find some Hebrew inscriptions, and the reason is that for making this construction, stones from the cemetery were used, and that's why we see some Hebrew inscriptions in the stones. And there are several, like 10, 12 of these stones that can be seen when visiting Barcelona inside the Jewish quarter. And this is just I wanted to show you, to give you an idea of how big Jewish population was in Spain. So in here we can see that there were Jews everywhere. I mean, this map, according to Professor Cantera, mentions synagogues in Spain. So synagogues in the Iberian Peninsula. And as we can see in some cities, we have like a bigger dot. That means that there was more than one synagogue documented. In some other cities that they have a small dot, it says at least one synagogue. And as you can see, there were Jews everywhere. North, south, east, and west. Okay, so Jews were very much spread out all throughout the Iberian Peninsula. Of course, there were some cities, Sevilla, Segovia, Toledo, Girona, that happened to have a big Jewish population, 400, 500, 600 families. And there were some other towns that had a much smaller population. But overall, we can admit that Jews were very much spread out all over the Iberian Peninsula. And the end of this presence, this presence of Jews in the Iberian Peninsula came, unfortunately, in 1492. 1492, as I mentioned at the beginning, was it's a key year in our history. The 2nd of January of that year, Granada surrendered. So the last Moorish stronghold, which was Granada, surrendered to the Christians. So after almost 800 years of Muslim control at the beginning in the whole Iberian Peninsula, and then as the years went by in less parts, eventually Granada is recaptured by the Christians. So this is the end of Muslim control in the Iberian Peninsula. And 3 months later, the decree of expulsion was signed in Granada, in the Alhambra of Granada, that became the residence of Isabel and Ferdinand. The moment that they captured Granada, they made Granada the city where they stayed, and it was in Granada where the decree of expulsion was signed, the 31st of March of 1492. And the reason is clear. I mean, you have a copy of the decree, and I've translated some of the excerpts of the decree, because the reason for kicking the Jews out of Spain was that since Jews had been given the opportunity to convert to Catholicism, and at some point, some of these converts did not behave properly as Catholics, but remained their Jewish practice in secret. That's why Catholic monarchs, Isabel and Ferdinand, decided to expel the Jews from Spain. So those that did not convert were not permitted to stay here, and they had to go on exile. And to control that the behavior of the conversos was the correct one, was appropriate, the Catholic monarchs created the Spanish Inquisition. The Inquisition is an institution created by the church in the 12th century in the south of France against the Cathars. However, at that time, the Inquisition, at the very beginning, when it was created, it was under the control of the local bishops, but then the Pope gained full authority on the Inquisition. So it was a religious court which was controlled directly by Rome, by the Pope. And this is what we call the medieval Inquisition. The Inquisition in Spain was slightly different. Why? Because the Inquisition in Spain was under the control of the Spanish monarchy. So it was under the control of Isabel and Ferdinand. Isabel and Ferdinand would appoint the inquisitors. Those inquisitors would come from the church. However, the highest authority on the Spanish Inquisition was the Spanish monarchy, and it remained like that until the very end of the Inquisition in the year 1834, by the way. So still in Sevilla, this is my hometown, we can visit the headquarters of the Inquisition. There were courts I think there were 17 sorry, 17 different tribunals, courts established all throughout Spain. The first one was in Sevilla, the second one was Cordoba. So in different cities, they created these courts to try heresy. Okay, and the pictures that I have here are from Sevilla. So this place is called today Castillo de San Jorge, the Castle of St. George, was the place where the Inquisition headquarters happened to be. And we can see some of the ruins underneath, and still even one of the streets that leads you to this place, it's called Callejón de la Inquisición, the Alley of the Inquisition, still keeps the name. And as I said, these are places, Toledo, Madrid, and Sevilla, and these are the squares where the Inquisition trials would take place that were inside the city. So there were, probably you've heard about the auto de fe. The auto de fe was the legal process, the legal trial where the accusation could come. And these trials were held inside the city. And of course, there would be public to see this events. So these are the modern places. And here we can see some scenes of those times. So this one in the middle, actually, this is Plaza Mayor. So this is this one. This one, Plaza Mayor, this is how it looks today. This is how it was painted. And this is a very famous auto de fe. I think this was the 1674 auto de fe. And also you can see in other cities, we have many representations of this auto de fe in many other cities. The Inquisition as I said before, lasted until the year 1834. So it lasted 350 years. And this is a map of the exile. So as we can see, the arrows come out of Spain, and Jews took four different routes. Some of them went to Portugal. Portugal became an independent kingdom in the 12th century. This is when Portugal was created. So, and the process in Portugal with the Muslims is the same to Spain. Remember, at the beginning, Muslims controlled the whole of Spain. That included what was going to be Portugal. And then, as the Christians was coming down, this part was also, it followed the same process of being recaptured by the Christians. So Portugal became like an independent kingdom in the 12th century. So in 1492, it's estimated that perhaps half of the Jews that went on exile moved to Portugal. Why? It's very easy to understand. They just could cross the border and moved into Portugal. We know that some others went north, okay, and some others went south, went to what today is Morocco, and a fourth group went to the Ottoman Empire, to Turkey. The problem of those that went to Portugal was that Jews were also kicked out from Portugal 4 years after. In 1496, 1497, Jews were kicked out from Portugal. So by the end, after they were kicked out from Portugal, they moved up north of Europe to the Netherlands, to Germany, and eventually to the Dutch colonies in the Caribbean. Okay, so this is a map with all the different immigration that took place after the exile. And here, Salonic in the Ottoman Empire became it became a city with a large number of exiles. Many of the Jews that were kicked out from and their descendants, they settled down in Turkey. At that time, Salonic was part of the Ottoman Empire. And here we have some pictures of synagogues that are taken in Salonic and in Turkey. Probably you've heard about Ladino or Judeo-Spanish. Jews, when they went on exile, they took the language with them. And the language was Spanish, Old Spanish, with a lot of Hebrew words. And it was written with Hebrew characters. So here we can say Judeo-Spanish. Okay? Judeo-Español, this is Judeo-Spanish. And it's a Romance language we derived from Old Spanish. Ladino is not only Old Spanish. Ladino has changed over the years and has been enriched by Ottoman, Turkish, and some other Greek and Bulgarian and Serbo-Croatian language. So as every language evolves and keeps developing, and this is what happened with Judeo-Spanish or Ladino. So unlike most of the people think, Ladino is not the old Spanish that was spoken in Spain. Of course, the Jews in Spain in the 14th century, they spoke the same Spanish as everyone else, with a little difference, which was the use of some Hebrew words in their conversation, pretty much as like we do today when we speak English or Spanish. Sometimes we use some Hebrew words. We say Shabbat and we say Pesach. And okay, even though we're speaking in Spanish or in English, we use this Hebrew words. And so this is what the language that the Jews spoke. And they took this language when they went on exile. And of course, and I say, the language was enriched by a lot of additions from all the languages from the Mediterranean. And we have to talk about the return. There was an exile, and we have to talk about the return to Spain, which happened as late as the 19th century, actually. And as I said before, abolition of the Spanish Inquisition took place in 1834. The first public Jews that we know of in Spain were Mr. Weisweiler and Mr. Bauer, who were representing the Rothschild Bank in Spain. And in 1855, they had settled down in Madrid. In 1861, is the arrival of the first Jews as a community to the city of Sevilla. Actually, the oldest of the modern Jewish communities of Spain happens to be in my hometown, in Sevilla. They came from North Africa, from Tetuan. And it was only 8 years later, in 1869, when the constitution changed and Spain permits other religions, publicly and privately, besides Catholicism. This actually lasted a very short amount of time, because in 1876, Spain returns back to Catholicism as official religion. But this is understood as the opening of the gate. So in 1869, some of the Jews moved into Spain, and they were recognized to practice their religion. And even though Spain returns back to Catholicism as official religion in 1876, Jews were already, or some Jews had already settled down in Spain. If we move on a little bit, in 1903, a politician, a Spanish politician, Senator Ángel Pulido, he travels in the Balkans and he meets with Sephardic communities. He's on a cruise on the Danube River, and he heard someone speaking old and strange Spanish. And when he approached to them and asked, you speak variety of Spanish, you speak Spanish, where are you from? The answer was, we are from Spain. We are Sephardic. Our ancestors were kicked out from Spain, and we've maintained the language. So this is the first moment in the history when Spain realizes that the descendants of the Jews, they call themselves Sephardic, and they speak this old Spanish, and they have maintained that as their mother tongue. The first synagogue in Spain actually was opened in Sevilla in 1914. Madrid opened in 1917, and 1 year later, Barcelona opened its synagogue. In 24, there is a decree by the government that gives Spanish citizenship to Sephardic Jews, and this decree lasted for 6 years until the end of 1930. Not many Jews, actually, not many Sephardic Jews took advantage of this and requested Spanish citizenship. Between 39 and 45 is the time of World War II, and Spain remained neutral. And we know that some Spanish diplomats helped the Jews to escape from the Nazi terror in Europe. But remember, Spain was officially neutral. So this was not the official policy of Spain, but just a labor that was carried out by some of the diplomats because they thought that this is something that they had to do. I have here the picture of Ángel Sanz Briz, that he was as you can see, the secretary of the Spanish embassy in Budapest, and he managed to help over 5,000 Jews to get out of Hungary by the end of 1944, when the Russians are approaching and entering and coming into Hungary. This is when Ángel Sanz Briz was there, and he gave Spanish passports to the Jews, so they were able to go away. In 67, Franco promulgates the law for freedom of religion. Until that moment, Spain was officially a Roman Catholic country. So Spain is only in 67 under Franco when there is a law for freedom of religion. And 2 years later, the decree of expulsion is officially abolished. So it took almost 500 years to officially abolish the decree of expulsion. And this process ended in 1992, which is the 500th anniversary of the expulsion. His Majesty, the King of Spain, he visited together with the Queen. This is a picture of the King Juan Carlos and Queen Sofia. They visited the synagogue of Madrid to apologize for the expulsion of the Jews of Spain that had happened 500 years before. We move on a bit, and 2008 is the first public celebration of Hanukkah in the streets of Madrid. This is something that is being done all over the year, especially carried on by Chabad. So the first time that this happened in Spain was in 2008. It has been going on for the last 15 years. And in 2015, in Spain again, remember that the first time was 1924, but Spain again offered citizenship to Sephardic Jews. The process is already over. So between 2015 and 2019, it was possible for Sephardic to apply Spanish citizenship, but the process is no longer cannot be done now. These are some interesting documents from my private archives, which is the establishment of the Jewish community in Sevilla in 1966. In 1966, remember, there's no freedom of religion yet. There's no freedom of religion. However, the governor of Sevilla, he gave permission to my father, which is the person that is mentioned down here, Simon Hassan. He gave permission to my father so they could meet in a place. Remember that Spain under Franco was a dictatorship. There was no right to meet. So my father sent him a letter asking for permission to gather together for Shabbat and also the Jewish holidays, and this permission was granted in September 1966. And in September 68, once the law for freedom of religion has been approved, this is when officially the community of Sevilla was founded, and my father became the first president of the community of Sevilla, and he was the president until he passed away in 1985. And these are just pictures of synagogues in the southern part of Spain. This one is in Costa del Sol. This one is in Marbella, also Costa del Sol. The one is in Malaga. This one is actually our synagogue in Sevilla. I just wanted to show you some of the small synagogues that we have in the southern part of Spain. And Jewish life keeps going on. These are personal pictures. So this is my wedding that took place in Sevilla. Actually, we did a chuppah in Sevilla, and we don't have a rabbi in Sevilla. So the rabbi from Barcelona, Rabbi Carciente, he came to perform the wedding, and we built our own chuppah. And this is the wedding of my sister. Actually, the wedding of my sister got married in Israel. However, she did the henna, which is a very Moroccan tradition, and she also dressed this is the night before the wedding, okay, and they celebrate this Berberisk night. So she celebrated, but she celebrated in Israel. And pictures of my bar mitzvah, not in Sevilla, but in Israel. Even though I was living in Sevilla, I decided to celebrate my bar mitzvah in Israel. And this is the bris of my son that took place actually in Madrid. This is the first Hanukkah that we celebrated at home and in Sevilla, first Hanukkah with my son. And this is also in 2014, the date that commemorates the liberation of Auschwitz. The 27th of January of every year is when the commemoration, the whole world actually commemorates the liberation of Auschwitz, and there is a very formal act. And in 2014, me and my son were invited to light the candles in the memory of the Jews that perished in the camps. And this is one of the many visits that I've done to Israel with my son. So I live in Sevilla, but we still keep Jewish life in Sevilla. And this is a bar mitzvah of my son that also took place in Sevilla, not in the synagogue. This is a hotel, but we brought a Sefer Torah from another synagogue, and we brought some sidurim and chumashim and all the what we was needed, and we celebrated his bar mitzvah in Sevilla. So this is it. So I'm sure that you have some questions. So I'll be happy to answer all the questions that you may.
Thank you so much, Moises. We will only read a couple of questions this time because we are very short in time. And then after that, I will pass the word to Alexis to share about the trip that is coming up this November. So the first question was, how were Jews treated before 1492 in the parts of Spain that the Catholics took over?
Okay. Not very well, because the issue was that at the beginning, when the Muslims invaded 711, remember, Jews had been so badly treated by the Christians that they went on the side of the Muslims. And then when the Muslims became intolerant with the invasion of the Almohads in 1148, the situation changed, and now Jews became allied to the Christians. Still, though, the goal of the Christians was to convert the Jews, and therefore they were accepted, they were tolerated. So not that they had many limitations. They had, for example, Jews in Christian Spain were not permitted to own real estate or land, even though there were exceptions and the king could give some land to a Jew. Okay, but the rule was that they could not own land or real estate. They could not belong to guilds. Jewish doctors were not supposed to have Christian patients. Jewish women were not supposed to be wet nurses for Christian babies, etc. So there were many limitations, and the reason was that they were not Christians, and even more, they were accused of killing Jesus. And remember, for the Christians, Jesus is God. So Jews were actually tolerated. On the other hand, and at some point, they were part of the society, and many of them were literated, and some of them reached positions within the court of the Christian monarchs at the time. Okay, but most of the population was against the Jews. Why? Because they were taught by the church that the Jews were the ones to blame for the death of Jesus. So, as I always say, Jews in Spain were just tolerated, and this is tolerated by the Muslims and tolerated by the Christians, but no more than that.
Thank you. And just one more question that I will read, but thank you everyone for the excellent questions. And I just want to tell you all that we will host Moises again in June in a slightly different topic, which will be a slightly longer talk with a longer period for questions today, just because we also want to leave time for the information about the trip. We'll cut it short. So just the last question, how many Jews live in Spain today? You can just say an approximate number, and then we will move on to the next presentation. Moises?
Sorry, I didn't hear what you say. I'm sorry.
So just the last question was how many Jews live in Spain today?
How many Jews? Okay, so that's a tricky question. Why? Because according to the Federation, there are 45,000 Jews living nowadays in Spain, but the truth is that I myself don't believe that there are more than 28 to 30,000. So the number of Jews in Spain is very low. Total population of Spain is 48 million people. So either 30,000, as I think, or 45,000, as the Federation says, it's still a very low number for Jews in Spain.
Thank you very much. And now I will pass the word to Alexis to share with us about the trip that's coming up this November.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dora. Moises, always nice to see you. And what I would share is if you enjoyed Moises's presentation today, you can only imagine what spending 10 to 12 days with him is like traveling in Spain. So just as a quick introduction, my name is Alexis. I also have a career in informal experiential Jewish learning. I have organized and group led for trips all over the world, Israel, Ghana, Uganda, India, a bunch of countries in the Americas. And I'm so happy to have this opportunity to share Spain with other folks from North America who are really interested in a deep dive into Sephardic Jewish history. It's wonderful to be able to participate in lectures, and it's also a totally different experience to travel. And as you're walking through the cobbled streets of Toledo or Sevilla to be learning about Jewish history. So our dates for our upcoming trip are November 12th through 20th, and we have an optional Barcelona extension from the 20th to the 24th. I'm going to take you through a little bit of the day by day for the different cities, and then we'll talk about some of the special things about our travel opportunity. So our trip is 9 days and 8 nights. We go to Madrid, a day trip to Toledo. Then we take the high-speed train to Cordoba. And from there, we travel to Granada and then Sevilla. And as I mentioned, there's an optional extension to Barcelona. The group flies there. So some of the special things about our trip is that we offer a small group experience. Our participants are usually between 20 and 25 people from all over North America. We've also had some folks from Europe and from Israel join us. We have a very thoughtfully curated itinerary. So we are having walking tours and seeing the best of the best in all of the cities where we're visiting. But there's also time to have leisurely lunches, do shopping, visit additional museums and different historical sites as you wish, and really just take in the experience of being in the south of Spain. Moises, who you've met today, is an experienced Jewish scholar and travel agent and is really able to share from a unique perspective what the current experience is like living in Spain. And then just a quick note about the hotels and dining experiences that we offer. We stay in boutique hotels, so smaller 4 to 4.5 star hotels that are located right in the old city centers of each of the cities where we stay. So once we get to a city, we're right in the heart of things, and we don't need to get on the bus again. So we travel by bus and, as I mentioned, by train that are from Madrid to Cordoba. All right. So we start our trip in Madrid. There is the Plaza Mayor that Moises mentioned. Aside from that, there aren't any old historic Jewish sites to see necessarily, but there's definitely time to experience Madrid and visit some of the fantastic museums that are in Madrid. Our second day, we do a day trip to Toledo, which is a medieval city about 45 minutes away from Madrid. Here's some examples just of hotels where we stay. And as Moises mentioned, in Toledo, we have the opportunity to visit 2 synagogues and also have time to explore. It's a very compact old city that you can see a lot of during the day. After Toledo is when we hop on the train the next morning to visit Cordoba, where we have 2 days and Shabbat together. Some of the highlights of Cordoba is the amazing La Mezquita, the mosque cathedral, a building that had been this huge elaborate mosque that then was transitioned into a big Catholic cathedral and now is sort of a mishmash of both. We also have time at the Casa de Sepharad, which is a special museum of Sephardic Jewish history. And, I'll tell you, one of the special things about going on our tour is having special opportunities that you wouldn't necessarily have if you were traveling by yourself. So, for example, at the Casa de Sepharad, we have an opportunity to hear Ladino music and hear from the founder of the museum, sort of the reason why this museum is so important to have in Spain and in the city of Cordoba. We have a Kabbalat Shabbat experience together. Our participants are from, as I mentioned, across North America and other locations. And we come together in sort of a non and multi-denominational Jewish Shabbat experience, which I find to be particularly meaningful, right? That all of these folks have come, and here we are together in Spain to celebrate Shabbat together as we're learning about this important part of Jewish history. On Saturday, we have the day to ourselves, a few optional activities, but nothing that requires any travel. There's opportunities to do some additional sightseeing. There's a beautiful, relaxing hammam spa that you can enjoy in Cordoba. And we finish our time together with a nice Havdalah. After Cordoba, we head down to Granada. Here's, oh yeah, such great. And for Granada, the highlights are to visit Alhambra. We also do a walking tour of Al Baisin, which is the old Muslim neighborhood, also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. There's a group dinner together. Also, there are some amazing Moroccan restaurants in Granada. I always make sure to go to one when I'm there. And here we have a picture of the amazing Alhambra. It's a huge fortress complex, and we spend many hours on a group tour and then time to explore the gardens and the different spaces of Alhambra. An example of hotels and restaurants. After Granada, we travel to Sevilla, where we end the first part of our tour, the southern Spain. There's opportunity to explore. We do a flamenco show together as a group and a wonderful walking tour with Moises, who's from Sevilla. So he's able to add some special touches and things that you might not get to experience with somebody who's not from that city. I'll also share that in Toledo, we had the opportunity this past trip to visit the mikveh because Moises has a special connection there too. So again, some of the benefits of traveling on our smaller group family tour with Moises. Sevilla, we do a lovely walking tour. The hotel we've stayed at the past couple times in Sevilla is actually right next door to that church, the Maria La Blanca that Moises had shared in his presentation. Again, the locations are just fantastic, and there's time to spend if you want to explore. We've had participants rent bicycles and scooters, go to visit different museums, and have some time in Sevilla as well. Okay, so after Sevilla, we have our optional extension to Barcelona here, where folks the group that's going to Barcelona will head to the airport together and take a flight to Barcelona to spend 4 days and 3 nights exploring Barcelona together and doing a deep dive into Jewish history and heritage, more in the north of Spain. The Barcelona experience also includes day trip to Girona and Figueres.
I can continue from here, Alexis.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Well, I'm Patricia. I work also, I run this company and the travel tours, and I live in Spain, even though I'm not a Sephardic Jew. I'm from Venezuela. My family is Mizrahi as my surname. I also joined the last few days the trip with Alexis and Moises, and actually, even though I live here, it's wonderful, no, to visit these places. And well, this extension, as my Alexis said, it's 4 days and 3 nights. We will fly directly from Seville to Barcelona, and just the next day, we're going very early in the morning. We will travel up to Girona, where we'll do a walking tour, visit also the Jewish quarter in Girona. We will visit the Rabbi Moshe house, also the Jewish Museum, and then we will continue to Figueres, because even though it's not a very Jewish related thing, we will have the opportunity to visit Salvador Dali Museum, which is also a very impressive experience. And the same night, we will travel back to Barcelona. It's very close. Everything's like an hour from Barcelona. So we'll get to Barcelona and you will have time to dinner on your own. The hotel is also very centric located. So you will have opportunity also to visit Barcelona and walk on your own and mingle with the the Catalans. On Friday, we will do, first of all, a panoramic tour in Barcelona. We will go to the Montjuic, also Paseo de Gracia, which is a very nice place, road, where we can find the most important buildings of Gaudí. We will have the opportunity to pass by also Sagrada Familia, which is not yet finished, but it's also very, very impressive. We will go back to the center of the city, lunch on our own, and then we will do a walking tour guided to another scholar from Kesher, Dominic, which is amazing also, and she will explain us the Jewish history in Catalonia and in Barcelona, which is also very, very interesting. And then we'll have the opportunity to, from there, directly go to do a Kabbalat Shabbat and then go for a dinner together. And on Saturday, we will have also Day at Leisure, where you can have the opportunity to explore the different places like Parguel, Gaudí's buildings at Casa Batlló, Amatller, La Pedrera, also La Rambla, also the city center, the Picasso Museum. I mean, it's not enough a day, but it's a beautiful city, Barcelona, and if you're here, I mean, you cannot miss it. We will have lunch on our own, and then we will have a farewell dinner, also in a very nice place, and go to say goodbye and to thank you for being with us here in Spain. And then everyone can extend their travels. A few people go to Mallorca, and other ones go to Morocco, also to Portugal, so they continue their travels. I think, well, as Alexis said, the hotels, all of them will be boutique hotels, 4 stars or 4 superior star. The group meals will be held at restaurants, and always with a kosher style option. It means in Spain, it's very difficult to find, and not difficult, but very, very expensive to find a kosher meal. But what we do, it's like a vegetarian option, a fish option. I mean, we don't force people to eat non-kosher meat. So it's a very friendly in that way. And also in our free time, we will suggest you many places to visit that are not on our program, but it's also very nice to do it. As we said, we will have together the Shabbat, both Shabbat dinners and Kabbalat Shabbat. Probably, if I'm not mistaken, in Cordoba we'll have the option to have a certified kosher restaurant. It's not 100% sure, but we'll try to do our best. And well, as we said, it's very Jewish, kosher friendly in many ways. Okay, Alexis, if you want to explain this part, if you.
Sure thing. And also, I would just note that please feel free to reach out. You can call me. My email is on the website for the trip. Happy to talk through with folks. The price right now is listed for American dollars as of the exchange rate yesterday. So for the early bird, we're offering it's 3,970 euro, which is around $4,315 today. The price will go up a little bit after June 3rd for folks who register. There's also a single supplement. So for the main tour, it's 650 euro. The hotels charge more for single travelers. We're also happy to pair people up if they would like to do that, if they are a single traveler. So what does the price include? It includes the hotel stays in each city. That includes breakfast every morning. The domestic, right? So all the travel that happens in Spain, train and bus. Also for group meals, including Shabbat dinner, the entrance fees for those spots that we're visiting that are on the itinerary. It includes a ticket to the flamenco performance that we'll be seeing in Sevilla, and additional tour guides, English-speaking tour guides in the different cities that we visit, along with Moises, will be there with us on the trip, and myself. Really the only thing the tour doesn't include is the international airfare, right? We know that people like to use points. They have preferred airlines. Some people travel before and then join us in Madrid. Some people, when the tour is over, extend their trip and do different travel. So we don't take care of the international flight or the airport, to and from once the tour has started. Excellent. And for the Barcelona extension, it is 1,680 euro. Today, this is 1825 in US dollars. Also the single supplement for those 4 days and 3 nights in Barcelona. This does include the ground transportation to the airport in Sevilla and the airfare between Sevilla and Barcelona, accommodations in a 4-star boutique hotel with breakfast each morning. Again, the touring in the bus and the tour guides, 2 group meals, including Shabbat dinner. As I mentioned, the tour guides. And Moises and Patty will be there for our Barcelona extension. Wonderful. And here is my email address and also a phone number where I can be reached. You can find this on our website as well for the trip, norakaplan.com. And really, it's such a delight to be able to have these sorts of experiences. And Moises and I would love to travel with all of you and any of you who would be interested in joining us this November in Spain. So thank you so much. How are we doing for time, Dora?
We're doing wonderful. So thank you so much, Alexis and Patricia, for sharing about the details of the trip. And if anyone has any questions that hasn't been explained, then please put them in the chat and we are happy to answer further questions. And while we give a couple of minutes to wait for these questions, I just want to also let you know that we will send out everything tomorrow. So you will receive tomorrow this little package of the recording of today's session, as well as all the contact information of Alexis. We will share with you the website where you can read more in detail, all the itinerary and everything that you may need to decide if you want to join this trip. Then you will have the chance tomorrow to receive this. But in the meantime, you're also you can see now in the chat Alexis's email address. So you can, if you are excited now, you can already copy everything from the chat. You can see there the website, you can see Alexis's email, so you can already be in touch with us today as well. So I haven't seen specific questions about the trip. I saw that there were many questions for Moises. And hopefully you can join us on another Kesher event where we normally have a longer time for Q&A. This was a bit of a special event. Yes, there's a question. What kind of weather should people expect?
Yeah.
And what are
So
the converters for electricity?
in November, it will be mild. We might see a few raindrops here and there. One of the things we've done too is we don't take our tours during the height of tourism season in Spain. So November is a much more leisurely and nice time to travel and do sightseeing. You know what? I don't know about converters, but I'm sure you could either on Amazon, it's whatever they're using in Spain. And a lot of plugs these days have converters on them too. Oh, look, there we go. Thank you, Moises. Great. And I think I just saw another.
Yeah, there was another
So,
question. What about
yeah,
handicap accessibility?
that is a really good question. And I will tell you that old European cities did not have ADA accessibility in mind. Right? There's cobble streets. There are not a lot of stairs aside from when we do our walking tours in Toledo and when we are walking around Alhambra. We do go at I would say a leisurely pace, right? We want to make sure that everyone's able to participate on the trip. Many people bring walking sticks, right? Or walking poles. Also, our tour guides all use what's called a whisper. So they have a little microphone and all of us participants have a little earpiece. So as we're doing walking tours, or even if we're in a group, you are able to hear the tour guide, right? So as we're strolling through Toledo, you've got the narrative of learning about the history in your ear as we're doing the walking tour. So I would say Spain in general is not particularly handicapped accessible entirely. It is not wheelchair accessible. That being said, the hotels all have elevators and we do go at a pace, where folks are able, we want people to keep up. But it is not possible for someone, unfortunately, to be on our tour if they use a wheelchair. Good question.
Thank you so much. And I just want to add previously to the weather question that in November, especially the south of Spain, not necessarily Madrid, but it's very, very sunny and beautiful. So it's a wonderful way to escape if you live in a more northern part of the US or Canada. You will definitely see sunshine in November in Spain. There was a question about art museums. Are there any art museums that you visit on the trip?
Mm-hmm. So we have time in Madrid for folks to visit the Prado, which is amazing, right? One of the world's best art museums. There's also the Thyssen, which is a smaller collection, but also very extensive. In Toledo, when there's free time, there is the El Greco Museum. And then for Barcelona, there's the, the Salvador Dali Museum, right? That's
the Picasso Museum, Dali Museum.
Okay.
I mean, we have many museums option also in Barcelona. We give also a lot of free time, specifically so you can those who want to enter those museums can go.
The museum is in Figueres. We are actually visiting that one, which is in the castle, the Teatro Museo of Dali, which is fascinating. It's in Figueres, and we are all going to that museum.
Thank you very much. Are there any books you recommend to read before one travels to this trip?
There are. I have a list of books. If you email me, I will send it to you. It's a mix of I love reading historical fiction and also a couple nonfiction books for the trip. And too, what I would say, it's really just so lovely to spend time with Moises and Patty and drink wine and learn from the other participants on the trip too, right? Like what are people's Jewish journeys and the diversity of Jewish history and experience. So we have a lot of good time together as a group, and then also time for folks to explore on their own. It's usually a combination. We have couples who travel together. We have single folks who are going on an adventure, and friends who travel together too. Great.
Thank you. Anything we must bring besides a passport?
Yes, closer to the date, we will send like the formal program, also with the lecture recommendation, books and stuff, and also a suggestion of what to package, no, and what to bring to Spain, depending also of the weather, what we are expecting, or so. Yes, you will receive all this information.
But there's no visa required to visit Spain for Americans and Canadians. Also, at this point, you don't need to show any proof of COVID vaccination. There's no restrictions, though, of course, we want to be mindful of the folks and friends that we're traveling with. So we ask, if you're not feeling well, you should put on a mask. Great. Well, please do follow up. Phone calls, emails. I'm happy to set up individual Zoom with people to talk with you more if you have more specific questions you wanted to ask about what it's like to travel with us. And we hope to see many of you in Spain in November next year, and to keep enjoying these wonderful lectures with Kesher, where we have the opportunity to travel and learn right from the comfort of our own homes. So thank you. Thank you, Dora.
Just one last question. Do you expect European visitors?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a couple people who've expressed interest, I think from different parts of the world. I think we also have somebody from South Africa who's interested in joining us for this upcoming adventure in November.
Very nice. Thank you so much. Thank you, Moises, Alexis, Patricia. Thank you, everyone, for being here today and learning about Spain and learning about the trip that we are organizing. We hope that some of you will be able to join in person. And as I mentioned earlier, we will send out all the information that you might need in a follow-up email tomorrow, including the recording of this talk, so you will be able to rewatch it or share it with friends if you think they might be interested. So thank you very much, everyone. We wish you a wonderful evening or rest of the day, depending on where you are, and we hope to see you all soon. Thank you, everyone.